Hello everyone, first news update for 23rd of April. Now it's 11:30 in the morning Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments that Russian media and the public is paying attention to, and I hope you will find this episode informative and useful. And if so, please, dear friends, don't forget to click that like button and to leave some commentary. It might help to deal with the algorithm and reach wider audience. And also, if you are watching this update on YouTube, please consider to switch for next 30-35 minutes to Rumble platform, and if you can, watch my update, this update and any other on Rumble platform where my channel is monetized. And if you have account on Rumble, please subscribe. Link to my Rumble channel is under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And yesterday I saw in the comment sections people were asking me how to find this link to Rumble. So I mean, this is my YouTube, right? Latest video, and in description box you can see here main Rumble channel. You just click on that link and that's it, it will open. Or by the way, in a pinned comment also, if you open pinned comment, you can see here main Rumble channel. You just click there on the link and the channel is open. So it's easy, it just takes a couple of seconds, and hopefully more members of our bigger community from YouTube will join our smaller community on Rumble, and hopefully my channel there will continue to develop. Well, that's being said, dear friends, let's go through some news now. And in yesterday's second update, I spoke about some peace plan that Trump allegedly have and will present to Kyiv regime, to its European allies, to world after. And there were several points in that alleged peace plan that Western media was talking about, and in yesterday's second update I discussed these topics. And today RT is reporting that Axios, also a Western media outlet, come up with a somewhat similar article with somewhat similar information about this Trump's peace plan. Let's go through this report here for a little more details. So Washington has presented Kyiv with what US President Donald Trump has called the final offer to end the Ukrainian conflict, according to a report by Axios. Kremlin, however, has urged the public to rely on official sources for developments in US-Russia talks. Their one-page one-page document was reportedly drafted following Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff's 4-hour meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin earlier this month, and was presented to Ukrainian officials in Paris last week. Axios reported on Tuesday, citing unnamed sources with the direct knowledge of their discussions. It's always unnamed sources and that kind of stuff. So therefore, of course, we should take all this kind of information with a pinch of salt, because who knows, maybe Axios is just making up this story, or any other Western media outlet, but maybe they actually have sources, right? But we should always be careful with these kind of reports. But anyways, let's continue. Under the proposed deal, US is said to be prepared to grant de jure recognition of the Crimea as a part of Russia, and unofficially acknowledge Moscow's de facto control over the Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics, as well as the regions of Kherson and Zaporozhye. The plan also includes provisions for lifting post-2014 sanctions on Moscow and enhancing bilateral economical cooperation. In addition, Washington would formally oppose Ukraine's bid to join NATO. In return, Ukraine would reportedly receive robust security guarantees from a coalition of the EU and other like-minded countries. Through their proposal lacks details on how this peacekeeping operation would function. Russia has, as we all know, rejected the deployment of NATO forces to Ukraine under any pretext. The framework also promises Kyiv unimpeded access to Dnieper River and potential cooperation for reconstruction efforts, although it does not specify where the funding would originate. The plan refers minerals deal between the US and Ukraine, which Trump expects to be signed on Thursday. Another component of their proposal, according to Axios, involves designating the area around Zaporozhye nuclear power plant as a neutral territory under US administration, which is also nonsense. Yesterday, I went through this some points that other media outlets, other Western media outlets were reporting in regards to this so-called Trump's peace plan, and the topic of deployment of European troops was one of the, as a sort of peacekeepers, was one of the points, and it's a non-starter, obviously, and same can be said about this idea that territory around Zaporozhye nuclear power plant should be designated as a neutral. How anybody could come up with this nonsense? I really, I don't know, struggle to understand that. Of course, Russia will not agree on this. In no circumstances, Zaporozhye nuclear power plant is a Russian nuclear power plant. Zaporozhye region is Russian territory, and there can be no US control on Russian territory over anything, period. Washington reportedly expects Kiev to respond to the proposal during a multinational meeting in London on Wednesday. Both Witkoff and the Secretary of State Marco Rubio will skip their event with the General Kellogg, another Trump's envoy focused on Ukraine. And well, Trump not going to receive no answer from London after London's meeting that was scheduled between leadership of Coalition of Willing, also Kiev regime and the US delegation, because, well, Marco Rubio is not going in that meeting. And after this information become known, media start reporting that, well, London, Berlin, France, Paris also are skipping this meeting. And now, which should take place on the level of foreign ministers, but now only expert level talks will take place, if even that. But that's a whole different story. When it comes to this Trump's final offer, it's a non-starter, isn't it? Difference. It's a non-starter. There are clearly certain points that Russia cannot agree in principle. Deployment of NATO troops in Europe under whatever pretext, and also, of course, there can be no US-controlled territory on Russian land in Zaporozhye region or in any other, right? And if Washington thinks that they might persuade Moscow with promises that they will recognize Crimea as a Russian, you know what? We don't care what you will recognize. Crimea is Russia, Kherson region is Russia, Zaporozhye region is Russia, DPR and LPR, Russian Federation, part of Russian Federation, and we are recognizing this. That's what is important for us. And what US will recognize or don't, we just simply don't care, right? And when it comes to US sanctions, that they are promising that we will lift sanctions on you. You know what? Keep it there. We don't need your sanctions to be lifted, because finally, Russian businesses are more focused on Russia and more focused on diverting their business and accessing new markets in this world. And they are doing this quite successfully. So these sanctions, one may argue that these Western thousands and thousands of sanctions that were imposed on Russia actually help Russian businesses and help Russian economy to get stronger, more diverse, and they're stronger. That's how it is. So obviously, these ideas are non-starters for Moscow in number of directions, at least. But if you remember, dear friends, a couple of days ago, I did while commenting on some ideas that Washington is throwing now on the table, I say that maybe this is attempt of Washington to prepare the ground for its withdrawal from this proxy war. They know perfectly well that this idea is not gonna fly, but they just don't care. After some time, they will say, maybe this is the game plan. After some time, Trump may come out and said, you know what, I tried. I give them one idea, another, third, then final offer, and they refuse. They refuse. So therefore, because this is not my war, this is not a war that America is interested in, I am pulling out my country from this. And you know what? Those guys should deal with each other on their own. We just don't care no more. Maybe this is the game plan, to prepare ground so that at one point Trump will withdraw US from this proxy war. Maybe because I find it difficult to believe that anybody in the White House are really serious about some neutral territories in Zaporozhye region around nuclear power plant or elsewhere. I don't think anybody is really serious on topic of deployment of NATO troops into Ukraine. Of course not, man. This is no. This is a principally no for Russia. Russia will never agree on that, right? So therefore, question is why Trump is throwing these ideas then on the table, and it seems logical to me. Explanation that this is just a preparation of the ground so that at one point US will withdraw from this proxy war. We will find out anyways. We will find out. Meanwhile, by the way, it's not just Moscow that will never agree on certain points in that alleged Trump's final offer or the peace plan. Zelensky, illegitimate leader of the so-called Ukraine, is also against, right? And he's refusing to recognize Russia's Crimea. So Kiev will not discuss recognizing Crimea as a Russian territory, Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky told journalists on Tuesday, according to Ukrainian outlet Saspal, whatever. So yes, even Kiev regime is opposing this idea. So therefore, obviously, Trump knows that these plans will not fly, but because he's still moving forward with these ideas, that means that they want to get out of this proxy war, and soon they will have enough reasons to say, you know what, we try. They don't want it, so they don't want to de-escalate, so therefore, you know what, we are out, let them deal with each other now on their own. That's what Washington might do. Meanwhile, by the way, TASS News Agency is reporting that Kremlin is not familiar with the content of the Trump's peace plan. The Kremlin is not familiar with the content of US President Donald Trump's peace plan for Ukrainian settlement. This was reported to Izvestia by Russian Presidential Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov, who noted that the plan would not be made public. So, as I said, maybe this is just a made-up story from Axios, and maybe some other media outlets also are just sharing some BS, while in reality, plan itself may be something different, but Russia has no knowledge of it in any ways, right? So that's quite interesting. Also, meanwhile, report that Ushakov, aide of Russian president, may meet with Witkov again this week, and probably Russian president will meet with Witkov again. So US presidential special envoy Steven Witkov may come to Moscow this week. Russian leaders aide Yuri Ushakov told reporters. So I guess Witkov will come to Moscow and he will share Trump's ideas or proposals that White House has right now in regards to Ukrainian crisis. And after that, we might learn some more. But yet again, even if US leadership is serious about de-escalating, we all know that globalists and the globalist-controlled regimes in Europe, first of all, UK, France, Germany, they will try as much as they can to prolong this proxy war against Russia. So therefore, I don't think it will make much sense to be extremely optimistic or over optimistic in regards to Ukrainian crisis. Unfortunately, there are still very serious forces in the West that are very much determined to prolong this conflict, this proxy war. And Therefore, tensions between Washington and European capitals, first of all, London and Paris, Berlin, is rising. And for example, we have indicator of that with this report that Rubio and Witkoff will skip London-Ukraine talks, which is quite interesting, isn't it? Initially, there was report that Rubio, head of State Department of US, and Trump's special envoy Witkoff will participate in this meeting that should take place in London, where this coalition of willing will be presented, Kyiv regime and also US. But Washington is skipping now this meeting, and this was a quite a strike on these globalist forces, European globalist forces, and therefore decision was made that top diplomats of UK, France, Germany, and Ukraine postpone meeting in London. So the foreign ministers of the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and Ukraine have postponed their meeting scheduled for Wednesday after US Secretary of State Marco Rubio decided not to travel to London. This was reported by Sky News and many other media outlets, by the way. So, okay, clearly indicator, I think, that there's some friction, serious friction between Washington and major European capitals that are leading this effort to prolong this proxy war against Russia. And as time goes by, this friction between major or leading countries in collective West will only increase, I guess. And Washington will distance itself from Europe more and more. Also, dear friends, when it comes to European affairs, we have this report that French President Emmanuel Macron is planning to use first possibility to dissolve the National Assembly and hold snap parliamentary elections in the fall of 2025, according to, and this information is coming from Bloomberg. And well, maybe this is true, maybe that's exactly what Macron gonna do, but France is definitely experiencing political crisis, undoubtedly. And social fabric in France, by the way, is also stretched, I will say, beyond limits, really. Also, dear friends, yesterday I reported on my Telegram about explosions that happened in... just a sec. Explosions that happened in one of the Russian regions on the military base. There was a huge explosion. Just take a look at this explosion, by the way. It was a munition depot that caught fire, and then a massive explosion occurred. There are plenty of videos on social networks about this explosion, and initially, of course, rumors started circulating that maybe this was a Kyiv regime strike or sabotage or something like that. But lately officials made a statement that it had nothing to do with the strike of Kyiv regime. It was just a tragic error that was made on this arsenal. So official version regarding the explosions at the 51st Arsenal is that a fire on the territory of the military unit in the Vladimir region resulted in a detonation of munition stored in a warehouse. The Russian Defense Ministry reported, according to preliminary information, there are no casualties in the Vladimir region. The cause of the fire is a violation of the safety requirements, the ministry added. So, well, unfortunately, this kind of stuff happens when some safety requirements are ignored, and no country is immune to such incidents. So that's the official version, by the way. It was a tragic accident, basically, and had nothing to do with the Ukrainian attack. Meanwhile, also interesting news, by the way, that Trump himself wrote on his Truth Social account, and let's read what he said, by the way. I've just spoke with or to Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, relative to numerous subjects, including trade, Iran, etc. The call went very well. We are on the same side of every issue. Trump said in this post on True Social, and straight away, people start asking questions on social networks. What this even means? Are Trump on the board with Netanyahu on topic of strikes on Iran? Is that what Trump wanted to say? Or maybe something else is going on, because lately, almost on daily basis, we are receiving reports that Israel is preparing to go ahead with the strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, and even large-scale military exercises were taking place in Israel, according to reports in previous days, to repel potential large-scale missile strikes on Israel. So now, why would Israel conduct such trainings if they are not planning to attack Iran? Maybe just in case, but anyways, there are quite indicators that Israel will, might actually go ahead with their strikes, and the US might help. By the way, US might help with it, because what this even means then, otherwise, when Trump is saying that we are on the same side of every issue. I don't know. And also yesterday, by the way, I reported about Turkish media's claims that Trump asked Turkish President Erdogan for a safe passage over the Syrian airspace, and also neutrality during strikes if attack will take place on Iran. So why would Trump, if Turkish media is correct, then why would Trump ask Ankara for assistance if Washington at least is not planning to participate in strikes on Iran? So I don't know what is happening, but unfortunately, almost every single day we are receiving more and more news that indicates that this region, Middle East, is actually getting closer and closer to unprecedented scale of escalation, even though exactly at this point negotiations are taking place between Washington and Tehran, and the initial reaction of world community was on these negotiations quite positive, and Tehran and Washington were also positive about these talks, right? So people were expressing hope that maybe there will be de-escalation, and without US will refuse to go ahead with attacks on Iran, and then Israel will not dare to attack Iran without US assistance. But maybe these hopes were too premature. Maybe Washington and Tel Aviv will go ahead with these strikes anyways. I don't know. But something dodgy definitely is going on between US and Israel when it comes to whole this Iran topic. And few news about some economical stuff. By the way, Hyundai has registered new trademarks in Russia. Recently, there was reports that Kia Motors, another South Korean company, is doing the same, and they are preparing big time, by the way, to come back on the Russian market. But they're gonna find out how difficult it is nowadays to establish yourself on the Russian market, especially on a market that is packed with dozens of with production of dozens and dozens of companies. And well, China, by the way, Chinese car manufacturers have a big stake now on the Russian market, and I don't know if South Korean companies be able to compete with Chinese manufacturers effectively enough. But clearly, almost every single day, Russian media is publishing information about all these Western corporations and the companies that are queuing in basically to come back to Russian markets. They are registering their trademarks and so on. So they are just waiting green light, and they will jump in. But yet again, some of them might succeed on the Russian market. Some of them might compete successfully with their other companies, but some might struggle big time, because time is not standing still, isn't it? time is moving on, Russia is moving on, economy is developing, getting better and strong, and competition is rising, right? And when it comes to car manufacturers, I mean, I don't know if South Koreans or other car manufacturers from the collective West, and South Korea is of course part of collective West, at least partially, not geographically, but politically. I mean, companies from collective West gonna struggle on the Russian market, many of them. Also, dear friends, interesting news, good news that fully importer substituted SG-100 civilian passenger plane, Russian passenger plane, did make its first flight, and this is a big deal, of course. This is a big deal. Only few countries in this world are capable of building planes on their own, completely independent from foreign import, right? Even Boeing is barely able to do so, by the way. Many parts in Boeings are imported from different countries, right? And Russia, due to these Western sanctions, by the way, had to overcome quite a number of obstacles and basically localize production completely, so that Russia is clearly in a unique place now when it can produce these passenger planes completely independent from import, which is a great achievement, by the way, great achievement. And I believe Russian SG-100, also MS-21, and the other planes that are lined up now to enter their service, I believe they have a greater, bright future. And the market is also becoming softer and softer because of the issues that Boeing is experiencing, right? And if I'm now, let's say, let's have some thought experiment. If I'm boss of an avio company, and I have to choose where to buy planes, I would definitely skip Boeing, 100%. I would not even think about buying Boeing planes, right? Either Russian planes, European planes, Eurobus, or what they call their planes, man. Airbus, yes, Airbus. Either Russian planes, and China, by the way, China is also adopting its local produced planes, and well, that's all the Brazilian planes, by the way. Brazil is also producing smaller planes, but still. So that's the choice. I would not even think about buying Boeing. So therefore, I believe these Russian planes will have quite good opportunities to gain success on not just on the local market, but also on the world market. And dear friends, I will end this update with this also good news that International Monetary Fund improves Russian economic growth forecast for 2025. The International Monetary Fund has improved its forecast for Russian economic growth in 2025 to 1.5%, according to organization's report. And well, I guess this is extremely conservative forecast on part of IMF. I remember last year IMF and World Bank was changing their forecast for Russian economy at least 3 or 4 times, something like that, constantly increasing the number, right? Because they started similar way last year too, but towards the end of the year, me personally, even though I'm not financial expert or economical expert, my guess was correct about Russian economical growth in a previous year and year before, right? And I think this year, despite all this chaos on the world market, which obviously influenced Russia too, despite all these thousands and thousands of sanctions that are imposed on Russia, I think Russian economy will grow this year at least 2.5, 2.8, or maybe 3%. Maybe 3%, by the way, at least. And I think my estimation is still conservative. Maybe Russian economy will do actually even better than that. So just mark my word, dear friends, in a couple of months' time, International Monetary Fund will make another change in its forecast, and they will increase a number from 1.5 to maybe 1.8 to 2%. And then towards the end of the year, they will do the same again, and they will again increase their forecast. Because the Russian economy will do definitely do better than some are expecting. And this is it for now, dear friends. Relatively short update. I hope you will find it informative, useful, and interesting. And if so, please click that like button if you have not yet. Leave some commentary just about anything, any topic. More likes and comments probably are helping to deal with their algorithm. And if you can, please share video with your friends or the information about the existence of my channel. And finally, if you like my work, if you like my channels, if you want to support this independent project that I'm trying to build, please consider to support. You can do it through several means. You can donate to this project through PayPal or Boosty platforms, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page or page on Boosty, where I have quite a lot of extra content on regular basis. So you will support my project, and also same time you will get access to some extra content that are only available there on Patreon and Boosty. So all the links, dear friends, are on this video description box and in the pinned comment, including crypto wallet, by the way. Quite a few times I received some donations through crypto, so therefore I have to mention that too. And this is it for now. Let's see how day goes news-wise, and if there will be some breaking news, of course, I will make second news update on my Patreon, and I will publish at least a short episode from that second update on YouTube and Rumble too, as I did yesterday. So thank you very much for your attention. Have a wonderful day, and take care. Bye for now.